Good evening, everybody. This is Daniel here. Today I bring you a tutorial on how to put together a torrent server that you can log in and download media to it, and then stream it using the Plex Media Server. The first disclaimer that I would like to touch is that this is going to be useful for those of you who don't have a server in their home network, and also for the ones that, like me, who travel a lot and want to stream their media from the outside of the home network and don't have the bandwidth. So the advantages of doing this in the cloud is that, first of all, you have a huge bandwidth that you can take advantage of, and the second advantage is that you don't have to invest too much money into purchasing a new machine in order to do this. Today we will be using Google Cloud Platform for this. The reason of that is because the pricing scheme is really comfortable. There are no upfront costs for you, so even if you run a certain instance, it's going to be cheap, more or less cheap, and if you shut it down, it will not cost you money. So, and also they give you a $300 credit that you can use for 1 year in order to do the testing. I already drained my credit a little bit because I've been running a couple of projects on my personal account. But as soon as you log into your Google Cloud Platform account, this will be $300, and this will be 365 days. So you can really toy around with these instances for quite a long time, and I'm sure that a lot of you out there will find this useful. So let's get started. In order to do this, we will be needing a Google Gmail account that you can sign in to. We will be subscribing that Gmail account into the Google Cloud Platform, and for that you will have to fill up some information like your address and also your credit card account. Your credit card number. So we will skip that for the sake of this video. We will be needing the Google Cloud SDK. So install this before you run into this tutorial. So pause the video right now and install it if you haven't done so already. And also we will be needing the Plex Server account. So these are the ingredients that we will be using. Today I'm running on an Arch Linux install. So a lot of these commands that you will see can run on most Linux distributions. If you're running Windows, I suggest you to use the Cloud Shell that Google Cloud provides. It's a very neat interface. You can run it in a separate window of your browser, and you can pretty much do everything from there, but I prefer to use my own terminal. So this is the main screen that the Google Cloud Platform has. As you can see here, I created a new project for this. So the first thing we will need, I'm sorry, this is in Spanish, this is my mother language, but I'm sure you can pretty much follow me. The first thing we will be needing to do is start a new compute engine instance, and for that we go into the compute engine section and VM instances, and we will create a new instance that we will call to just Plex Server. A lot of the concepts that I'm going to be touching I will not explain, so make sure that you have a background and you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, make a quick search in the internet and you will find that out. So we will call this instance Plex Server. I prefer to use US Central 1A because I'm closer to that one, but you can use pretty much anything you want. it is not much of a difference. We will be using a cloud instance that is the N1 standard one. I think this is more than enough to run the Plex server and the Torrent server. Then we will not be using Debian. We will be using Ubuntu 16.04 LTS. For this, we will use a standard disk. The SSD can perform faster, but it's just a waste of money in my opinion for this particular project. And 10 gigabytes is okay. You might be wondering why 10 gigs if it's that little space. You will find that out because we will be using to stream our media. We will not be using this disk. We will be using a Google Cloud Storage bucket that I'm going to teach you how to set up. And then for the firewall, I'm going to authorize the HTTP and HTTPS traffic. So let's go ahead and create this. Okay, this is now showed up. So the first thing we will do is save up this IP, and you can do this by going into VPC network, then external IP addresses, and it's in here you would see ephemeral. You want to change that to static, so we will call this just Plex Server, and then press reserve. So now your VM instance is going to have this fixed IP in between the reboots that you might want to do. So this is important because you can, if you need to reboot your instance, you might lose this IP, and you might find yourself doing a lot of these steps again. So this is quite important. So now we will connect to this instance, and users of Windows should do this here. Open the window in the browser. But instead of that, I'm gonna just copy the command, and I'm gonna paste it in my terminal because that's the way I like to do things. So since this is a new project, it's going to update the SSH metadata, and that can take a while. So we will wait until it gets done. Okay, so we're logged on. It added this machine to my list of SSH authorized hosts, and now we are in the Plex server, as you can see there. So now what we will have to do is we have to update the repositories. That's the first step, because we will be downloading quite a lot of packages from here. So the torrent server is important because you want to, unless you want to upload manually all your media, you want to download directly to the machine, to the VM instance, all the media that you want to stream out. So for that we will be using transmission. So sudo apt-get install transmission-cli, transmission command, and transmission-daemon. So yes, we want to install it. And by default, apt-get will start the daemon right away, but we have to stop it in order to configure it. So you have to issue this command, which is sudo service transmission-daemon stop. So now that is stopped, we have to go ahead and configure this one. So now we have to go into the configuration file, which is in with var lib transmission-daemon, then info, and then settings.json. So this is the configuration file that we have to modify. First thing that you want to change is you want to scroll down to the username and put something different than transmission. I usually put just my name, but you can use any word that you want. The next thing is the whitelist. Unless you want to run transmissions from an SSH tunnel, which I find unpractical, I guess, you want to be able to log into the screen remotely. So for that, we will use this notation. So this means that any IP can log into the transmission UI. This URL is the one you will be logging into, and remember this port. This port is really important because we will have to, in the firewall of the Google Cloud instance, we will have to whitelist that one. And then is the RPC password, which is encrypted. If you want to change it, you have to delete this completely without the quotes and put any word that you want. And I'm gonna just choose Daniel. When you save this file and you start the daemon, the transmission client will encrypt this one, so nobody can see the password that you actually typed in. So these are all the changes that you have to do in this configuration file. So just press Ctrl X and confirm to save the changes, and then start the daemon again. Sudo service transmission-daemon start, and remember, you have to remember the number of the port. So we have to whitelist that one. So we go to firewall rules into the VPC network. We're going to create a new rule for the firewall. We will be calling Plex TV. This will be an input. This will be allow. We will call just all the instances of the net. In here, and the intervals of the IP, I'm gonna just choose everything. So 0.0.0.0/0, and then here we would type TCP 9091. This is the first port that we have to allow, which is the transmission port. So we will create this one. We will be waiting for a bit until it deploys. So while we get this done, we can go back to the VM, and we can log into the transmission UI. So in order to do this, you have to remove the S from the HTTPS. You have to type in the port number and then /transmission. It's going to ask you for your user and the password that you previously entered, and then access. So this is how you mount the Torrent server. And in here you can upload the torrent files that you want to download, and all the magnet links. Everything gets picked up by transmission, and in here you can configure everything. So the download folder, the speed that you want to have, the upload limits, the network, and this is important. This port we also have to allow it in the firewall, so we're gonna just copy that, go back to the firewall, and then we're gonna enter in this previous rule, because we just want to add a new port, which is TCP dot this number, and then save. And now we can officially download torrents directly into our Google Cloud instance. But if you remember at the beginning of this video, we only have 10 gigabytes to download, and this will be just a couple of HD movies. So Why we will be choosing to use a different storage for this is because using normal disks is really expensive. So we want to keep the costs as low as possible in order if you want to do this. So for that we will be using the cloud storage. The cloud storage is not a POSIX or a Unix-like file system, but we can adapt it and mount it as a normal file system, and you can download the files directly to the transmission from transmission into this cloud storage, and then you can configure Plex to stream the media from here. So that's really the useful thing. We will deploy a new cloud bucket, and in this we will be calling just PlexServer, this library of Plex. And then in here you have 4 types of storage classes. We will choose only regional because it's cheaper and it has a decent performance. If you don't know, I'm sorry, this one is already in use, so I'm gonna use Plex TV drive. So if you don't know what you're doing, just follow me and use this one. This is the best. It gives you the best performance for the best price. So we have here already our bucket. So we will create a folder which we will call downloads. Create. So you can officially upload anything you want here. And this bucket has a petabyte of free storage, of unused storage. But unless you want to upload everything manually, you want to use transmission in order to download everything directly here, because you will have an awesome download speed. So how should we mount this file system so that transmission is able to recognize it? Is by doing this. First thing that you want to do is go to your service accounts of your Google Cloud Platform account, and in here you should have only one of these. If you want, you can create a new one specifically for this, but I'm gonna just use my default one, and I'm gonna choose create key, and it's gonna prompt you to choose the format. I'm gonna choose JSON because that's the format that I need it. And so we will choose create. So it's downloaded a JSON file which we will be uploading to the Google VM instance, and I'm going to show you why that is important. Is because we will translate the Google bucket into a normal file system, and that requires extra permissions. So we have to go back into this one, to the SSH client, or I'm sorry, the terminal, and we will be creating a new directory which we will mount the Google bucket. So I'm gonna issue this one, sudo mkdir /mnt/plex tv drive, and then sudo chmod -r 777 mnt plex tv drive. So what we have done here is we have created a mount point that we can assign in order to mount the Google bucket, the Google storage bucket that we just created, and we gave it full permissions. So the next thing that we need to do is download the GCSFUSE. The GCSFUSE allows you to mount the Google Cloud Storage into your VM instance. So in order to do this, you have to issue this command. You can check this out in the video description. You don't have to pause the video in order to do it. Then we have to add a new source, because this package is not in the regular lists of the repositories. And then we have to download the GPG key. So now we have to update the sources. And then finally issue this command, which will install the GCSFUSE. So now we have the GCSFUSE, which means Google Cloud Storage Fuse, and we have to tell it which bucket to mount into this VM. So in order to do this, we will be needing an FTP client, and for that I'm gonna just choose FileZilla. You can use whatever FTP client you want, but I find this one is actually much easier to use. We will create a new site, and you have to paste the IP number here. We will be using SFTP. We have the access mode is normal. You have to type in no password here. I'm gonna just put my blank name, which is my username, and then in transfer options we have to choose active. So if you put connect now, it's going to ask me if I trust this site, which I do, and this is it. So now we have connected through FTP to this machine, and we have to upload the JSON file that we just downloaded into the home folder. Okay, so we just upload it. Now we can just close this, and if you type here ls, you will see the new JSON file. In order to use this key, we will be issuing this command: GCSFUSE -o allow other -gid0 uid0, which are the UIDs and GIDs of the root user. File mode 777, so we are giving full permission to read and write. dir-mode also 777. Key file, we will replacing this line to the path of the JSON file that we just uploaded. So home Daniel. In my case, is home Daniel and then Plex test drive. Then the name of your bucket, which is, if you remember, Plex TV drive, and then the mount point, which is /mnt/Plex TV drive. So this will prompt you to modify this file, etc fuse.conf, and allow other to activate this. So we're gonna just do that now, etc fuse.conf, and you have to remove this one, uncommented. So let's try this again. So now we have successfully mounted the Google storage bucket into the VM. So now that we have everything mounted, we can do df-h, and you see here that the Plex TV drive has 1 petabyte of free storage. So this is the mount point that we will be using to download everything. So this is just as easy as logging here, pasting a torrent file here, and then changing this to mnt Plex TV drive, and then downloads, which is the folder that we created manually in our Google storage bucket. So the next thing we need to do is to install Plex. So in order to do this, we have to go into the Plex TV downloads page and hit download. We will be using Linux for this, obviously, because we're using Ubuntu. And you have to choose Ubuntu 64-bit. But instead of just clicking right away, we will copy the address into the terminal. So we will do wget and then the address. You paste it and you download it immediately into your Google Cloud instance. So now we have to install it. tpkg-i Plex Media Server. Obviously you have to do this as root. So most of the time this doesn't give you any errors, but in case you see an error, you have to do a sudo apt-get -f install. In my case, I know that this is not going to have any effects, but if you see any errors, issue this command. So now we have officially a Plex server running into our VM, but in order to access it, we still have to tweak a little bit the firewall. So we will have to go back to the firewall and then Plex TV. The first rule that we created, we have to add more ports to it, and for that we need the list. So Plex Server, ports. And you have to enter into this thread. What ports do I need to allow through my firewall? I'm going to paste this link into the video description. So we will be copying all these ports into the rule. So now we have all of the ports that Plex needs, and we're gonna just paste. We are gonna just save the rule and move on. So this is going to take a while. Remember why I suggested you to have your own SSH client? Not everybody does, but since you are running this away from your home, and you have to claim the server into your personal account. So you have to exit, and you have to then use an SSH tunnel to pretend that you're in the same network as this instance. So this is why this is important. So in order to do that, you just have to issue SSH and then the IP address, which is 35.184.82.35, then -L, capital L, and then 888.8, column localhost, column 32.400. So we will have to import this new key into our dictionary, and now we're officially inside the same network as the Plex server. So if I type here in my browser localhost column 888/web, you see that we have our Plex server already running, and we will claim it. If you don't do this, you won't be able to scan your library or create any new content or scan it. So this is why it's important for you to have an SSH client of your own, instead of just doing everything by the Cloud Shell. It's not enough. So I just signed in with my Google account, which is already saved in this browser. Great, we found a server, which is called just Plex Server. This is important. Allow to have my content out of the house. Yes, you want to have that activated. So we want to press next, and then we will add a library I'm going to add a library here that is going to just be called movies, and next we will tell which folder it is. And if you remember, we mounted the TV Plex drive and the downloads, so everything that you download through transmission will appear here. So add library, and this is just everything that I'm gonna do. So I'm just gonna press next and then done. So this is a functional Plex server. So you're officially ready to start downloading anything you want through torrent files into your server, and you can easily manage this using the terminal and the Plex server interface. This is just a magnet link, as you can see there. And instead of downloading it in this folder, we're going to use Plex TV drive and then downloads. So click upload, and we're downloading officially the first movie that you will be able to stream through your Plex server. So this is the great advantage of the cloud, that you have a lot of bandwidth and for a very minimal amount of money. And I'm sure that when I upload this video, it's going to take days, but you can see here that it's going to download 3 gigs of media, almost 4 gigabytes in just 20 minutes. And the upload is just as fast as the download, and it's not going to take any space away from the drive that is running your operating system.